Okay, so just talking about the code that I've developed for my application, and we'll start off with the layout forms, or the XML forms. So this is basically the main front page. It will be the second page after the login page, but this is where the messages will be from the user and the AI chatbot. So it looks very simple. Got the message down here. It's all within a drawer layout, which means that we can have the navigation bar at the top. In this, I'm using a recycler view to store the messages and display it. Here's what it looks like. Now if we look at the actual layout of the toolbar, navigation bar, we can see that you've got the main options here, so the clickable options for the user that can click on, and we've got some icons as well to make it look professional. And then on the header, which the user can't click on but shows the relevant data towards it. So we've got an image view, which could potentially in the future be the user's profile image, and then we've got the name of the application and then the name of the user as well, which will show up obviously once a user logs in. On the main login page, which will be the first page that the user sees, the navigation bar won't be there. The user will have to log in first to activate the navigation bar. Now we're looking at the login activity, looking at the Java file for that. We can see that, so on create, the model is there connecting up the FireBase and just making sure that's definitely connected okay, and that the user's got a stable internet connection. So once the user inputs their data, you can see here that it will be updated. Once the person presses the login button, it will then check with the database on FireBase that the credentials are correct and everything, and then if they are, then it will obviously take them to the next main page where the user can chat with the AI, or it will simply just display an error message saying that the credentials are wrong. By doing this, it goes to the login view model, which is then getting the username, getting the password, making sure that's okay. Once the user has logged in, we'll then go to the login data source Java file, which is in the model folder. So this here, the best way I found doing this was to store the logged in user's information in shared preferences, which is like a file on the user's device, and that basically stores the user's name, the user's ID number that's referenced in the database, and their option for sound as well. Yeah. Next we'll look at the chatbot activity Java file. So we've initialized the drawer here for the navigation bar at the top, and then we're adding a message to the recycling view first off to welcome the user and just prompt them to ask a question. This is done by an adapter, a message adapter, and within this we've got a few functions that we can use to add and bind the messages the user has sent and received to the recycler view, and then after automatically sending a message to the recycler view, we just update this down here using this little one-line function, which is dead handy. And all that does is means, rather than the user having to swipe down to refresh that messages came in, it will automatically just appear straight away. once the user has sent in a message of their own, it goes through this little function here, which is a query for the database, where it goes through the question and answers. It first off changes the user's input all to lowercase, gets rid of all the space at the end, because some keyboards automatically, after you've put a full stop or a question mark, it'll add a space at the end, so we'll get rid of that, make it all lowercase so there's no errors, and then it will check with the database to see if that's also in the database, and then return the relevant answer. And if it's successful here in this statement, then it will add this to the message adapter, which then obviously updates the recycler view. But obviously if the question doesn't exist in the database, then it will add a different message to the adapter saying, sorry, can't find this, please ask a different question. So actually looking at the adapter, we can see that on the create, so yeah, here's the constructor. When the user sends a message, it's always sent with the context, the message itself, and the sender. And the sender is either a chatbot or a user. We can use this to separate the messages in their view, so the user can see what they've sent and what the user's receiving as well. For both the senders, we've got the user view holder, and we've also got the chatbot view holder as well. So the slight difference is that when we bind the message with the recycler view, it will bind in a different way, so that it will have its own blue text if the user sent the message, and if the users receive the message, it will be orange, and it will be on the left and on the right. It'll be very clear to the user who has sent what. It's also got a time as well. If the user has received a message, then a little sound will ding, like a notification sound. It'll just go, well, ding. You'll be able to hear when I show the app. But we've implemented a setting feature where when you go onto the settings, you can either turn that off or on, and that's also in the database. So no matter what device you go on, that'll be saved on your account technically. And here's a little statement there, and obviously this is in the shared preferences as well. When the user logs in, it gets that and saves it. So if the user has the sound setting as true, then it'll start this sound, then once it's done, it'll release it. So looking more onto the settings activity, if we look onto the XML file, I've used a switch to define whether the user wants the sound enabled or disabled. This can be toggled very simply, and another button just to save it. Upon saving, it simply just updates the database by saying the user is true or false with the sound, false for being disabled, and it also updates the user preferences as well, so that the user can have the change in real time rather than having to restart the app to get the latest updates from the database. It'll also take into effect straight away. On the toolbar navigation at the top, when the user clicks on it, there's three options. There's home, which then takes them to home, settings, and logout. When the user clicks logout, it will simply just start up the login activity again, and remove all the shared preferences and sign them out of the database as well. Okay, so this is what the application looks like when you boot it up. You've got the email at the top, password, then sign in. So we'll give it a couple of tries with different accounts so you can see the different usernames working. We'll start off with admin.com, and I'll put in a fake one just so you can see sign in failed. I'll put in the real password, sign in successful, and then I don't know if you heard that over my voice, but a little sound came up because a message came in. So you can see here the orange text on the left hand side is the message from the chatbot. At the bottom we've got a message and a little button where I can ask a question. So if I ask nothing gobbledygook, a message will come back straight away saying, sorry, I don't have an answer for that, please try a different question. So if I try a question I know is in the database, I'll send that. Message will be received. So that's an example of the actual chatbot itself. And then the navigation bar at the top, I can either swipe or I can press the three dots at the top. So at the top we've got the user's profile image, the name of the application and the user's name as well. I can show that changing. I'm going to log out, sign to a different account, Harriet Mail, and we'll double check the name. So if we test this with another account, we do harry@mail.com and put in the password, comes up, and as you can see at the top left the name has changed to my actual username. If we go on settings, we've got a setting for sound, so if I want to turn this off, click save, that's already in effect. So if I ask the question again, there the message still receives and everything, but there's no sound, and that change takes into effect straight away because it's updating the shared preferences and the database at the same time. So next time I log off and back in, it will have updated. I'll do that right now just to show you. Mail.com. Yeah, so no sound, and then I just put that back on, and then the sound starts again. And again, log out, log out. So that's cleared the shared preferences and removed my authentication into the FireBase as well.